moving on to the next topic, which is about data storage and metadata catalog, and will be taken upon by Mr. Manoj Kumar and by Mohit Sinha. Let me give a quick introduction about both of them. So Manoj is an enterprise and data architect having 13 years of cross-cultured experience in designing large-scale business solutions and distributed real-time stream processing solutions. Being a data evangelist, helping enterprises to understand the power of data and build strong solution based on data-driven decisions. He is working here as a manager software engineer. If I talk about Mr. Mohit Sinha, he is a data curator with 13 years of unique experience on working with different clients and domains to help them in making data-driven decisions. Mohit also adapted this theory of data-driven decision in his life and made many good decisions like the one joining Impetus. Here he is working as a senior lead software engineer. So next you would be able to hear both of them. Thank you, and over to you, Manoj.
Thanks, Surbhi. Thanks for a wonderful introduction of me and Mohit. I hope I am audible to everyone. Okay, so so far we have discussed about the overview of data lake, different ingestion practices, and the different governance mechanisms which we can apply or the data lake. And now we are going to talk about an important pillar of the data lake, that's storage. So we'll cover over the data lake storage layer over here in terms of how we are going to store the data and the different other approaches over here. And then we'll talk about the data catalog and the data discovery, where that's the kind of how we are organizing the data and how we are identifying hidden patterns and from my data. Moving on to next slide. So while we are creating my lake, or designing my storage, definitely I would have a different questions in terms of the data and the compatible storage, like what would be the amount of data, my storage would be able to handle those or not, how to organize, what type of data my storage could have, that could be structured, non-structured, semi-structured, so those kind of questions. And if I bring some data or the huge amount of data into my lake, that would be durable or not, because that's a very important concept. So we'll talk about this in detail into the later slides, and after that we'll talk about the different other concept, like what are the different attributes, or if I want to access my the data which I need to, that's my golden data. So I would be able to locate it or not, whether I'm able to access it faster and in the stipulated time. So that would kind of thing. And what value does my data carry? So we'll talk these questions over there. So let's move further to have a detailed understanding about it. Okay, so while we talk about the storage, lake storage, so there are certain characteristics about it. That is, the first one is the highly scalable. I mean to say highly scalable, like I need to store the huge amount of data, and my lake should be capable enough or to scale itself, so that I can bring new data or any further extension of the existing system. My data lake should be capable enough to store that, process that, and it is not just a matter of the storing and the processing. It is also a matter of the onboarding new use cases. Let's say I have a HR department, billing department, or any other department, and I want to bring some more use cases, build more use cases, like I want to perform analytics, or I want to have some interactive queries mechanism out of it. So those kind of use cases I should be able to incorporate on the existing data lake itself. Highly durable, we'll see in detail about it, like how can we build a highly durable storage, but definitely my storage should be equipped to persist my data for years and years, independent of fixed schema. So over here we talk about like I should be able to ingest all format of data. It should not be having some limitation in terms of the I should apply first schema or define the schema, then only I should ingest data into the lake. So my lake is capable enough or design in such a way like I should have a data. I should be able to ingest my data in a very minimalistic schema so that I could bring everything into it. And when I need those data to process, when I build my use case or using those data, at that point of time, I will apply my schema. So that is known as a schema on read, not the schema on write. So in data lake solution, we used to apply the schema on read over here so that every data could get ingested. Separation of the compute, separation from compute resources. I mean to say here, like, let's say I need to bring some more data. So if I need to enhance my storage capacity, but not the compute capacity, I should be able to enhance my storage without extending the compute storage. So most of the, if you look at the most of the cloud systems like S3 or the blob storage or ADLS, so those are having a kind of providing a independent storage scalability over there so that we can enhance the storage only, not the compute facility on top of it. So these are the characteristics. Now let's look into the further insight or like how we are organizing the data or storing the data in lake. So generally we used to store data in lake in different layers. That is, the first one is the raw layer and the organized layer, and there is an analytical layer. We'll talk about that. So storage in the raw layer, just it's kind of just a replica of whatever we have over the source system. So we are dumping everything into the raw zone as a source system. We are not applying any transformation from source to raw layer. So in this way, we would be having a raw data in my data lake. And from here, one of the question I was looking at the Q&A section, like whether I should be having a complete historical data at the raw layer or not, or there we can apply some retention policy. So definitely over here, there could be a cold storage associated into it, and we can apply some retention policy on top of it. And after that time, we can put into the cold storage so that while we want to bring any of the historical data from data lake, I would be able to bring it. And corresponding to the different layers as well, we do have some metadata or the defined set of schema, which is handled by the metadata and different tools we do have. We'll talk more about the metadata. But here we can use the Glue or Atlas to handle the metadata. If I talk about the organized zone, so organized zone is basically created by applying some of the transformation like some filtering mechanism, or we are processing the raw layer data and creating the metadata, business form of metadata or the schema, and applying on the raw layer zone so that my organized zone would be the cleaner data, would have the cleaner data, so that and the transformation could be like the retention policy could be a CD logic, a CD 0, 1, 2, 3, and basically a CD logic over here. So the organized zone is the clean data, having the clean data, and the frequent access and cold storage could get associated with any of the layers. Once we have the organized layer, we can onboard different use cases, and that is forming basically the analytical zone or the consumer zone. So the use cases data are basically the building analytical zone. So over here we consume the organized zone, and correspondingly we'll build the use cases on top of it, and the metadata is governed by my Atlas or Glue. So there is a section over here. So this is all about the layers approach. Let's say I have moving on to the next slide basically. So over here I have defined my layering approach, but while ingesting the data definitely will bring into the different files, right? So we'll talk here the different file formats which needs to be chosen depending on the different use cases. That could be a kind of ingestion, or that could be a kind of ingestion. If I talk about batch versus stream, that could be a kind of different operation intensive. That could be a read or write. And second is the storage type. Storage type is again a kind of what kind of operation I need to do in terms of the extraction logic. If I talk about whether I should go for the raw, whether I need complete row at a time, or I need to go for the column oriented, or that is the only I need to specific set of the data. That is the only columns data, so that I can easily perform aggregation or the selection, faster retrieval out top of that. There are some other parameters which are basically over the next slide, but I can talk about here just schema evaluation and the compression. So we'll take into that into the next slide. But depending on the different use cases, if I talk about the ingestion, batch or stream, so basically if I talk about the Avro, so it has the row oriented schema, row oriented format of the writing over here. So in case of stream processing, definitely stream is basically the row by row data. So we used to prefer Avro, and in case of the batches, we can definitely use the Avro over there, but Parquet ORC or these files are having a more suitable for those kind of scenarios, but not in the streaming. But if I talk about the storage, raw oriented or column oriented, so Parquet or ORC are basically the column oriented. They have more basically they are column oriented and can have a column specific data extracted out of it. If I talk about the operation intensive, that's a read or write. I mean to say the read many or the write many, or the write once, read many. So in where if I have the operation like write once, read many, then definitely I would like to go for the Parquet ORC or kind of file format. But if I have the write many and read many, definitely I would like to go for the Avro or the CSV kind of files. Moving on to the next slide, like schema evaluation. So as we talked about in ingestion, like my friend Mika had talked about the Avro. In terms of the schema evaluation, it's majorly supports the schema evaluation, like backward or the forward compatibility with respect to the schema. So it maintains the schema in JSON format, so that we can basically extend any of the time due to which it provides the backward or forward compatibility over here. But if I talk about the Parquet or RC, they also provide the schema evaluation, but it is limited with respect to the technology through which we are implementing it. CSV and sequence does not provide the schema evaluation. And when I talk about the compression, so compression comes where we want to minimize the storage over the network or the disk. So depending on those kind of situation, we should go for the different compression strategies. And even if I choose the file formats, there are certain file formats which are providing the default compression, like Parquet ORC, Avro sequence. They already have a default compression strategy provided, but they also offer some more compression. So default is Parquet ORC provides snappy compression, but the CSV does not have any compression strategy. So if I look all the operation in totality while designing my lake and choosing file format, so it completely depends on the operations which are performing or which are going to be performed in the lake. Moving on to the next slide, we'll talk. Now we have already seen like file formats. Now let's see how those files are being stored into my storage. So there is a strategy like a file, block, and object. So in file, the complete file is stored into storage as a single object, but it maintains the hierarchy. Hierarchy over here, like we can compare it like a cabinet or the hard disk on any of the system, where we do have a root folder and their subfolders, and correspondingly these files could get organized. And these are mostly suitable for write many and read many operations. But looking at the extension or the scalability perspective, these are very low, providing very low, suitable for very low scalability features. Due to which we do have to avoid the limitation from the file storage format, we do have a block storage where my file is basically divided into multiple blocks, same size blocks, and all those having a metadata or the location corresponding to those blocks individually. Here as well, it provides the hierarchy, but while accessing it, it provides the multiple ways to access it. Like if you look at the diagram over here, there are basically two ways to reach out to a single block. Okay, so in this way, multiple direction we do have. So in this way, it is more suitable to the write many and read many operations. So in case of while we are designing our OLTP solutions, so these kind of file storage formats are most suitable over there. But if I look at the object storage have a when I store a file over there, these are basically, sometimes it could get divided into the single some smaller size, divided into smaller size, and those are basically known as object. And out of those object, a repository is being created, and corresponding to that repository, it has a single location to access it. So in this way, it creates the flat structure. So due to the flat structure, it has the infinite capacity to scale it. And while we talk about the in terms of the accessibility, most of the object storage are basically the access through the different web services or so. So we can compare it like any of the resources where we do have a REST APIs and access it. So if you look at the S3, Amazon S3, where any of the, when we are storing any of the file or any of the document over there, so we do have a single URL corresponding to it, and we can access it through using that URL itself. So object storage is mostly suitable for data lakes, designing the data lakes, and the where we do have require the limitless volume to store. Moving on to the next slide, here we are going to talk about the storage capacity. So we do have scalability basically. So while scalability, we talk about the horizontal or vertical scalability. Horizontal scalability in terms of the adding the different nodes into the existing infrastructure, so that nothing existing could get disturbed, and all the new addition could get welcomed into the existing system. But in case of vertical scaling, thus the existing environment itself being scaled up vertically, so that we can serve our purpose. So scalability can be achieved through the different ways, like a manual, scheduled, or the automatic. So when I talked about the manual, we do have, let's say I have let's take an example of Ola and Uber websites. So while we are seeing the load over my website, we can increase it my capacity using the manual approach. But let's take an example of 24/7 scenario. So Ola, Uber used to have a higher demand or the higher load over the 8 to 10 or 11 a.m. on the evening 6 to 9 p.m. So during that time, we can schedule to increase my handling capacity, and during the rest of the time, I can decrease my processing capacity, and this way we can reduce the cost. But let's say there is a sometimes it happens like there is some rainy day and so all of the sudden there is a rain happen in between of those time. So definitely traffic could get increased. So those kind of scenarios, to handle those kind of scenario where we are not aware, like when the load would get increased on my infrastructure, we can go for the automatic scalability. So most of the cloud does service provider does have a scalability like scheduled or the automatic. Moving on to the next slide, we'll talk about the durability. So the durability is something like when you store the data into the storage, if there is a drive failures or the any of the bit get rotten or any form of corruption. So these kind of scenarios, how my data lake storage is being handling these kind of scenarios, so that my storage is always available to handle my use case. So there are certain approach to have it. So one is the replication and the second is the reverse coding. So if I talk about the replication, my block storage and the file storage used to have a replication. So in terms of the replication, you used to have a multiple copies of the same data or different nodes, so that if one of the disks could get failed, my use case or my use case could get solved from the different hard disk or the different node. But during the replication, I definitely need to have a thrice or 4 times, or depending on the number of replication factors, we have to storage over there. While we talk about the eraser coding, object storage used to have a eraser coding where there is an algorithm being implemented to achieve the durability, and in this way the only I need to store the excess amount of the parity bits, or that is the being used for the algorithm to recalculate my actual object. But while using the eraser coding, definitely it would require the high computation cost, because there is a encoding and decoding involved there. So due to which it requires the high computation cost. So object or file storage, basically the block and file storage uses the RAID mechanism to have a durability like RAID 1, 5, 6, 10. So depending on that, these are providing the durability through these RAID or the eraser coding. We do have a durability available. So this is all about the basic storage concept. Now we are going to talk about the metadata catalog and data discovery, and my co-speaker Mohit Sinha is going to take care of that. So please feel free to add any question in the Q&A section. We would be happy to answer that. Thank you. Thanks, Mohit. Over to you.